People ask me, I was born in Rebecca, Georgia, actually, and people asked me, was that why you were named Rebecca? I said, no, it wasn't why I was named Rebecca. My mother's name was Rebecca. My daddy's mother's name was Lydia, so I was named Rebecca Lydia. We actually grew up in Colquitt County. My dad was a prayer warrior. He loved to pray for people. And we would see people that would come into town on Saturday and they would say, is your dad here today? They were wanting to find him because one of their children was sick and they wanted him to pray for them. And if you talked to him very long, he was going to tell you about Jesus. My mother was the same way. My mother had a beautiful soprano voice. So we grew up in a home that really respected Jesus, and we loved music, and we all sang. Being a farmer's daughter, we worked very hard. We were taught that working was not hard for anybody. That's what people should do. That was a way of life. I learned a lot through that because I remember that there were times that we would have our crops and there was no rain. And my dad would say, okay, I think it's time we went to church. We gathered all the farmers together and we're gonna pray for rain. And we went one night to a church and we were praying for rain. And it really came a rain. I mean, it really, really rained. Well, my mother had bought a pair of new white sandals. And coming out to the truck, she got water all over her shoes. There was mud all over her shoes. She looked at my dad and she said, well, Duncan, that was my dad's name, I think this time you have really overdone it. We moved around a lot. I graduated from Fitzgerald High, and I was a majorette in high school, and I loved being in the choir. A majorette is a person that leads a band and twirls a baton, and we march and we're the leaders of a band. I knew all my life that I wanted to sing, and I wanted to sing for Jesus. But you know, I thought as I got older and I became a teenager, and I started thinking, my, wouldn't it be wonderful to grow up and be another Doris Day and to be able to sing like her? How about Patti Page? That's not bad. I loved the pop music in that day, and that's sort of the style. Later on, my family, my mother and my daddy and my brother moved to Orlando. And at that time, we started singing together. And we actually formed a gospel group. And at that time, television was black and white. A lot of people probably didn't even have television. And here we're deciding we're going to sing over a radio station. I mean, not over a radio station, but on a TV program. We went and we tried out. And the people there said, yeah, we can get somebody to sponsor you. And we did a little segment every week. I met a person that sang over Lois Whitaker. She sang every week over Acts, which was a Christian station that was started in Leesburg, Florida. I heard her and I loved her voice. Something in my spirit that said, you're going to meet her one day and you're going to sing with her. About a month after that, we went to a Dino concert at a church. She came in and sat down right in front of me. And I asked her, would you like to come to our house for dinner? So she and her husband came. She came to my house. She said, I understand. I talked to somebody that knew you and they told me that you like to sing. So she said, I decided to bring some cassettes. She said, let's see how we sound together. And we started singing. For 7 years, we sang together. We traveled all over Florida in different areas, and when women's groups would call us to sing, and we sang and we did skits. And she was in that skit. She was Myrtle and I was Inez. And we were two Southern women. And we wrote skits about the church and the people in the church and about friends and neighbors. And Myrtle would say, you know, Rebecca, we ain't supposed to talk about our neighbors, even if they ain't no good. And I'd say, I know that, Myrtle. And little things like that. But people loved the skits. We made them short and to the point, and we loved singing together. In 1969, I met my husband, Gerald. And Gerald had 2 teenage sons. The oldest one had just gone it was in Vietnam, and he served time there. The youngest boy was 15, going on 16. But it was such a joy then, because I knew that God now had really putting him in a place that I can have a family. It was a happy time that we all bought a house and we came to live together. We lived in Orlando, Florida. I worked in Seminole County, so that was a little tough. It was a little long drive. But then my husband worked at Cape Canaveral. My husband was a mechanical engineer, and we got to see a lot of things and got to meet a lot of people because of his job. In 1982, we were invited to go to the Philippines with our pastor and his wife. And on that trip, we went to a little school in Kauai. When we went there, it wasn't anything like you would see a school here. They had the school in a little church that had been built there. One morning I got up to sing, and I noticed in the back when I would sing, there was this little girl that was sitting amongst about 125 students at that Bible school, and she was always smiling. So we finished our mission trip and we went home. In the summer, the director of that school, Florentina, and his wife, we invited them to come to our home and stay. And I had a dream about this little girl, the one that was smiling all the time. But I said to Florentina, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to describe a young lady at your school to you. I can tell you that she looks like the youngest child in your school, but she also smiles all the time, and you can just see Jesus all over her. Oh, he said, don't ask me anymore. That is joy. I said, you got that right. That is a bundle of joy right there. So I said, we would like to send her something. If I had a suitcase, could you take it back with you? I put some material in there. I said, I'm going to give you money, have somebody make her some clothes. And that's how then, about a month later, I get a picture from Joy. And in this picture, she's thanking us, and I recognize the material. It was one of the materials that we sent for the little dress that she had on. In 2 years, we went back again to the Philippines, and then we really got to know Joy. On one of those visits, when we left the Philippines, we decided to stop in South Korea. We went to a little town, and we were going to have 2 night services in this village, and it was very, very small, but just had a few buildings on each side. And a gentleman came up to us and says, are you the people that are going to be doing the services in the villages? And we said, yes, we were. And he said to my pastor, I have a little radio station here. Would you come in and would you speak to the people? And they communicated a lot with radios. If you got sick, if a member of your family even got sick, they would go to the radio station and they'd broadcast it, and that's how the people, the family, knew that they should come to that town and see about you. He looked at my pastor and he says, "You're the pastor." I said, "Who is she?" I was standing next to him. He says, "Well, this is the lady that does the music. Her name's Rebecca." He said, "Could you do a song?" And I said, "Well, do you have an outlet here? Do you have anything to play it?" At that time, we had cassettes. The cassette, we discovered, had to be in one part of the building, and the microphone was in the other part of the, if you want to say building, it was just a little square hole in the wall. So we got it rigged up, and I'm thinking, I said, "Well, let me see if I can hear it." There's a wall between me and that. So I started, the song that I decided to sing is, "There's no other friend to me like Jesus." I could barely hear it, but I said, "Lord, you're really going to have to help me here." And I sang that song. When we got there that night, people came from everywhere. We had just a little platform that we stood on, some lights that were hanging from some trees. We don't know how they made that happen, but that's all we had. But there was people as far as you could see, and they said to us, "Could you sing that song, 'There's no other friend to me like Jesus'?" But God used us that day in a little hole in the wall with just one little microphone and a system that barely worked. People were saved and brought to Jesus. And that was the highlight of that trip. In 2012, my husband Gerald, he went to be with Jesus. And I was here alone in a house, the people leave and you're here and you're grieving alone. And one night I went to bed and I was praying, and fear absolutely entered our home. I was afraid all of a sudden. I even got up, and I have 5 doors in my house, and I checked all 5 doors, and I'd go back and I lay back down, and I was afraid. I got up again and I checked the doors. I went back and I sat on the side of my bed, and I said, it dawned on me, why am I afraid? I'm a Christian. And I got an old Bible that Gerald had that is absolutely worn out. And I turned to Psalms 56. And David said there, "When I am afraid, Lord, I will trust in you." And I made Satan a footstool in my house. And I started claiming the blood of Jesus Christ in my house. I got up and I got some oil and I began to anoint the doors again, which we had done when we bought this house, and the windows again, and I felt that spirit leave my house. I felt only the Spirit of Jesus Christ. And as Christians, I want you to know, you don't have to live under bondage, and I want you to know that fear is not of God. Around 2014, after Gerald passed away, I felt like that God was just calling me to a different place. I'd passed by Heritage a lot of times, and I had talked to a lot of people. And as I entered the door, people were so friendly. They greeted me. I knew without a doubt that it was the place that God had sent me. I was so overwhelmed with the praise and worship team. I loved the band. I loved the worship. And I prayed and I asked God, do you think that I could really sing on that stage? Do you think at my age, because I was almost 80 when I went to Heritage, God still uses me today to sing, and I'm so really pleased. Thank you, Heritage, for letting me be a part of the praise and worship team at 82 years of age. When I look back on my life, I honestly wonder how I've influenced a lot of people. But I do enjoy telling people about Jesus. I'm always ready to tell others about Jesus. One reason I'm ready to do that is because I was healed. There was a tumor in my left kidney, and God healed me Did I deserve it? No, not really. But that's how He's blessed me during my life. He has put me in places and situations that I never dreamed that I would be there. He's allowed me to sing to people that I never dreamed that I would be able to. One of the things in my life that I enjoy doing now, I volunteer for hospice. I go into the hospital, I go into the homes, I go into the nursing homes, and I love to stand by a bed. People may not look at you, but you can tell them about Jesus. In my case, I like to sing to them about Jesus. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to live for Jesus. And you can know that He loves you, He cares for you. He'll never, you may let Him down, but I'm telling you, the God I serve, He will never, ever, ever let you down, because He is our friend, and there's no other friend to me like Jesus. I would love to tell you what I think of Jesus, since I found in Him a friend so kind and true. I would like to tell you how He saved my life completely. He did something that no other friend could do. There's no other friend to me like Jesus. There's no other one so kind as He. No one else can take the sin and darkness from me. Oh, how much He cares. Oh, how much He cares. Oh, how much He cares for you and me. Jesus loves you, and He wants to put a new song in your heart.